Here's the little green guy in billions of pockets, the brains behind these things. But there could be a breakup on the way. This relationship is complicated. See, Android is the operating system running most of the world's smartphones.
Over 90% of the market share, or 90% of companies actually using that system.
And we could be about to see how much China really relies on it. Companies from Samsung to Sony use Android. It is open source. Anyone can license it, which includes the big Chinese manufacturers. But Android is a Google product. Remember, Google is American, and therein lies a problem.
With Android gone, these companies are pretty much shuttered.
Companies like ZTE recently banned from purchasing American components for 7 years. Huawei likely to feel nervous too, effectively blacklisted by carriers in the US due to security fears from the government.
I think this is going to be a death knell for any gadget manufacturer that relies on Google.
The problem is there are no real viable alternatives. Microsoft did have one, Windows Phone, but it gave up on that last year. BlackBerry used to have its own operating system. Now it uses Android. Same story with Nokia. In fact, the only other major cell phone operating system out there is Apple's iOS. That's what you're going to find on things like iPads and iPhones. But Apple does not share that with anybody.
Any Chinese manufacturer that's stuck in this situation will likely still have access to the main Android kernel. That's open source. So that's now sort of a product of the entire planet.
The kernel is like the baseline.
The baseline core of what Android is, but it's all of the periphery. It's all of the other apps and services, the Google Direct services that a lot of consumers rely on. They're going to be denied that. And that's what really kills the Android experience.
And it shows just how much the Chinese kind of technology industry is still very reliant on the American technology industry.
Exactly. I think people tend to think when they think of China, they think of this big bag wolf independently doing things. But at the end of the day, they're using component parts. They're using a lot of different things that come from the United States. And if anything, this makes it very clear. Without that, then these particular companies cease to exist.
It's rumoured that Huawei is developing its own operating system purely as a backup. It may soon be needed. A solution could come from the world's largest cell phone maker, Samsung. See, Samsung uses Android for its flagship devices, but it has another operating system that it's been developing for years. It's called Tizen. It's never really caught on, at least not in the mainstream market. Could now be its chance to shine?
I don't think that software is going to be a huge player for the actual smartphone, but it helps a lot with watches and other accessories.
And so companies like ZTE potentially facing a nightmare situation, hoping they won't be cut off from the very ingredient that makes the smartphone a smartphone. Lavelle, CGTN, Los Angeles.